Thank you for joining us on the Tell Me About Your Jesus podcast. If you're wondering what you've stumbled upon, well, this is just a show hosted by two guys who will tell you some stories about what Jesus has done in their lives. We hope you enjoy this episode and are blessed by what you hear.
All right, well, we're here with Tell Me About Your Jesus podcast. This will be episode 1, and I hope that you can bear with us through it because we are learning as we go. My name is Shain. I'm here with Brian, the co-host, and we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves to get it started on this first podcast, and then we'll get into y'all stories. So, Brian?
Yeah, so just the journey to get here, right? I think we talked about 51 takes.
Yes.
Just in trying to set up the gear and get it working, we hope, correctly. Just trying to do that's been a challenge, but I think we've got it like we like it, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, we're about to find out.
Yeah. So about us, Shain, tell us a little bit about your story and maybe where this idea for the podcast came from.
Well, I'm unlike a lot of folks here in the South. I did not grow up in church. I didn't come from a religious background or anything like that. Very much the opposite. I guess I was in my mid-30s when I realized that my way wasn't working and my way was kind of dumb. And sat down and did a lot of praying and said, all right, God, I'm gonna try it your way from here on out. And from that point on, about a year or two later, I met my wife and my son, and they really kind of, they did grow up in church, and they kind of led me to God. And my biggest thing was my son, Chris. He loved God, and I was like, man, I really want what he's got. And for the last 13 years, I have leaned into it, and I just kind of got this calling about the podcast and here recently, and I just feel like this is my way to share some of God's grace and God's love to everybody.
Yeah, so we were talking the other day, right? I think when you originally had the idea of trying to do it, the idea behind it, the title of it, Tell Me About Your Jesus, is really, I think, you're wanting to get people's stories, right?
Correct. I want a place for people to come and feel welcome to say, whatever their story is, whether it's, hey, I've got a Jesus moment where this could only have been God that did this, or maybe you've known Christ your whole life and you want to share how he has helped you through life, because, man, this life's hard. So I just want to give a safe place for any and everybody to come and tell me about your Jesus.
Well, at the comment you made to me, I think, was like, everybody's got a Jesus story.
Yeah.
At some point. You've either experienced him yourself, which we hope many people have, and if not, we'd love to talk to you about that, how that's possible. But a lot of people, every day in their lives, there are things going on, right? Where you can see where God's hand moves, and sometimes we're excited about that. Sometimes it's difficult, right?
Yeah, it's not always, what you want. You may want things your way, and I want it now, and I want it to happen and me be great and happy, and this is fantastic. And a lot of times God makes us wait. It's his turn, it's his time, and he has a plan that we have no idea about. And yeah, man, life, you could feel like life is sucking, like this is terrible. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's why I went through that. Okay. And that's your Jesus moment. That's God saying, hey, just be patient. I got you. So.
Well, we're both theologians, right? And I don't know which seminary you graduated from, but you and I went to the same school. We're the class of nevers.
Yeah.
So neither one of us are theologians or in any right, but I think that we both invest a lot of time in trying to study things like that.
Well, and I think one of the good things about the two of us is I think you kind of grew up in church and around church and all that, and you've got more of a background than I do. I'm old and trying to catch up, and so I'm gonna be the one that says something I shouldn't on this podcast. That'll be me, Shain.
No, that'll be both of us at the same time, right? So yeah, it's funny because you're talking about your story. We may be opposites a little bit in that fact, because I grew up. My granddad was a pastor, and
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was.
I did not know
he
that.
was. I had really funny, and not funny, story for a later date about when I was in a tornado as a kid, and the only room that was spared in the entire house was his study, where all of his Bibles and all of his books and everything were. It's the only part of the house that had the roof remaining on it. Nothing was damaged from water. Only part. It's amazing.
Wow.
But anyway, so I grew up. I actually became a believer, truly believing, around 6 years old. So that's and I'm an old man now. So that's almost
you're in
40,
your 20s now, right?
Yeah, something like that. It's a long time, but I was pretty steadfast as a teenager at some point. I think everybody, how rebellious can you be when you're 8 years old? I mean, you can't do a whole lot of bad things, but knew early on that God was a very important part of my life. Thought about actually going to seminary at one point, so I joke about that, but I never did. Right? Found that there were other ways to really serve through that, but enjoy just seeing over the past few years really the goodness of God in my life. And we were talking just before we hopped in about how God really aligns things in your life at certain points in times, like what we've been studying. We're both doing this chronological reading.
1 year Bible, chronological 1 year Bible.
Yeah, Bible in a year, and just the readings that we've seen about people being called to do things that they didn't know what they were called to do.
Yeah, I mean, just 2 days ago we read the story of Jesus calling Moses to lead the people out of Egypt, and he's like, no, anybody but me. And I think we've both been kind of that same way, that trying to get to this point. So.
Yep, and obviously it was very obvious that we don't know what we're doing. If you look at if we could even record, get the 51 bad takes.
Yeah, we keep looking at the computer to make sure it's still recording. Like, yeah, all right, still going.
We're walking in faith here on that. So, I guess the idea long term is maybe if this is good and we get some positive feedback, either way, I think we can share our stories.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we could, if nothing else, we have enough people that we know that we could guilt them into coming on here and talking to us. So
I think so. But I think the idea would be eventually we'd like to talk to more people.
Yes.
And let more people tell their story, right?
Absolutely. I would love to hear from the young and the old. I've got a son in college, and yours both just graduated college, and so we kind of feel that tug of the youth, and you see the kind of the revival taking place, at least in our area. We're from the deep south, so we see that a lot.
You can't tell that from our accents at all.
Yeah, if you didn't know, we're Southern. So.
Yep, it's one thing we didn't cover. I guess we should say, we are in Alabama. Both of us live in central Alabama area, and where church is a part of life a lot of times. But even then, doesn't really resonate with some people.
Yeah, absolutely, and I was one of them for 30-something years. Again, like I say, I don't think I ever went to church as a child, maybe more than 5 or 10 times, and we just didn't do it. It wasn't part of our family thing. I got stories. I'm not going to bore everybody with all my long stories now. I'll give you those later. You got to hang out and get those later. But yeah, I don't know. Somehow, I never thought I'd be here to the point of having a podcast talking about Jesus and the great things he's done in my life and saved me. If you'd have told me that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I'd have laughed you out of the house. There's no way I'd have done this. So this is truly a God thing, and we're both just trying to be obedient servants to him and try to get his message out. This is not about us. This is about y'all stories. I want to hear how God has moved in everybody's life so that we can get that out to the people that maybe haven't had that experience, or they had that experience and just don't realize they had that experience.
Sure.
So,
and even to encourage people that are that are going through some of the spots where you may not be seeing it in the way you want to see it.
Absolutely.
We got some pretty bad news about some people we know today that they're, one of them is probably looking at the end of their life coming up, and it's been a struggle. So, that family, they know that the person's a believer. So there's no question about eternity and will we see them again. That's not in question. But, that saying goodbye is really really tough.
Mm-hmm.
So I think stories about how we've been encouraged through times like that will be good. And to the idea to help people understand and to see that even that Jesus is there with us in all our times, whether they're great times, difficult times, or everything in between.
Absolutely. It's amazing. I mean, the things that he does for us every day, and that's just kind of the point of what we want to do. We want to bring that to light and hear everybody's stories.
Shain, is there something that you might want to share on our first episode here? Something about your Jesus moment?
Yeah, I can get into it. It's a little heavier than maybe the rest of this as we try to fumble our way through it. That is my dog in the background growling at each other.
Was he growling? I know what he was
That
doing.
would be Baker growling at Barney.
That's funny.
Maybe we should have shut that door. Sorry.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I guess I could tell a little bit about my story. My Jesus moment really is kind of a heavy moment. Back in 2001, I lost my father in 2000 to cancer, and I got divorced 2 weeks before he passed away. My first wife.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was in August of 2000, and I really, man, it was rough. I went downhill pretty quick and drank a lot, did a lot of things I shouldn't have. And to be 100% honest, in 2001, through somebody that I was kind of friends with, she had invited me to church a couple times, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, it's not really my thing. And one night in 2001 in springtime, I was sitting outside and honestly was probably going to take my life. I had a firearm with me and was arguing with God and trying to get an explanation, and I was done. I was just done. Life had been rough, so many things. I'd lost some folks, and I was just done. And as I was sitting out there, she called me and said, this is before we had cell phones. I'm old. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a cell phone, but I'm sitting outside on my porch and I hear my phone ring, and of course I didn't answer it. And it was like, hey, I'm just calling to double check. I really want you to come to church this Sunday. I really think you'd enjoy it and all this other. And so that was kind of my moment of, I'm real close to not being here anymore, and here comes somebody making sure I'm coming to church Sunday. And full disclosure, I went about 6 times to their church, but that started me on my journey of praying a little bit more. I actually went and bought a Bible for the first time in my life and started reading a little bit of the Bible and realized that I was not doing things His way. I had been living life my way, and I tried to change that. And then about 6 months after that was when I met Gina, my current wife. And things, that was kind of a turning point for me.
So it's interesting, hearing you tell the story. I've never heard you tell that story before,
Yeah, I don't tell that story very often. So.
But you know what? That's not an uncommon story, I think. I think there's a lot of people who, they come to the crossroads. Apologies for the pun there. But they come to a point where they realize either God is who He says He is, and He's going to do what He says He will do if you trust in Him, or not. So, obviously you didn't wind up marrying that girl.
No, we were just friends.
Sure.
I mean, yeah.
Sure. But just thinking back, so she had you on her mind for a reason.
Yeah.
The reason is realistically, God put her on your mind.
Well, she was a customer at the repair shop that I worked at, and she, brought her car in one day, and we were just talking while I was making the estimate, and she's like, "Oh yeah, here's my card. Our churches, we will need the calling on our churches to be fishers of men," and she gave me a little business card that was, an invitation to church, and she wrote her cell phone on the back of it, and like, call me if you need anything, and I think I gave her my cell phone or my phone number at the time.
Right. Okay.
And I never contacted her again about it at all. And she just called me a couple weeks later and was like, "Hey, I really want you to come to church this Sunday."
Hmm.
So
her being obedient, not in any big way, right? She was just asking you to church, knew some of the things that had gone on. She was worried about you when you called, but that obedience was used in a really big way by Christ.
yeah, I mean, it probably literally saved my life, and it set me on the path to find my wife and my son that I've got now, and
Right.
be the person that I'm trying to be now.
Hmm.
Be a good, obedient servant.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, and just think about how many people have crossed my mind today. Where is that an opportunity that I should be able to reach out to them? So maybe, if I think we're coming up on what we're going to keep it on the limit here, but
Yeah.
thinking back, people that have come through my mind today, do I need to take action on that? Is that my calling today?
To make just a simple text, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You never know somebody that's going through that depression and that level, that little bit of, hey, what are you doing? How you doing? Or hey, you want to grab lunch?
Yeah.
Man, it's even if they don't go to lunch with you, to feel that somebody cares, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
to your point, you never know what someone is going through. We never know what our voice means to them, and how God's going to use us in any way.
Absolutely.
So cool, man. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
I know that's tough to share.
Yeah, it really is. I think I've only really told Gina and Chris at this point. And I told Chris when he was 17, 18, and he was struggling a little bit, and I'm like, hey, I've been there, dude.
Yeah.
So.
Really. Well, I tell you, prayer today is whoever hears this, that they're able to relate to it. And if nothing else, right, if they need someone to talk to, right, I think we've got a website that's up and running, maybe.
We're probably working, maybe. It's
It's easy. It's tellusaboutyourjesus.com.
Absolutely.
It's a long thing to type in, but it's really simple to remember. And there should be a place on there where you can go in and send us a note if there's something that we can help you with, to pray over, or you need someone to just talk to, correspond with. We're there to help. I think we're kind of viewing this as a ministry. I hate to use the M word.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think
That's
so.
scary.
I mean, it's a little early, but yeah, I mean, I would like to, if you got something you need one of us to pray with, or pray with you about, or pray for, absolutely. Reach out to us, or if you got a good story, hey, send us a good story.
We'd love to hear it, because we're just two guys, two country guys.
Yeah.
And we're going to run out of good stories at some point. And there's a lot of more interesting people out there that can share some really, really amazing things, I think. So I'm looking forward to hearing how God works in everybody's lives.
Yep, and if we can figure out how to make all this stuff mobile, maybe we can kind of come to you a little bit and set up and talk to some folks and hear some great stories about Jesus and His love and grace and forgiveness and that we don't deserve at all, but He does.
Yeah.
So
as we're wrapping up here, I just want to say thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for everyone that's listening. Hope this was encouraging. Hope that it's made you think in some way about how Jesus has touched your life, and how you can help be His hands and His feet in the lives of others.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of our first episode, and we just want to thank you for joining us. We hope we'll see you here next time. Remember, God is faithful. Be a good human.